Our reading today comes from Reverend Angus MacLean. Angus MacLean was a Universalist minister and a professor of religious education during the early to mid-20th century. These words come from his notable address to the Universalist Sabbath School in Greater Boston in 1951, and it's entitled, "The Method is the Message." He wrote this: "I am interested in a process by which the learner directly experiences values. I am also interested in a process that makes assets, rather than liabilities, of a child's restless energy, their activism, their consuming curiosity, their love of fun, their tendency to dramatize life, their constructive impulses. The child's nature is in harmony with the process by which live values are communicated. So I'm interested in a kind of teaching that uses child's energies in learning. Such a situation would permit a significant percentage of the time to work with your hands, for talk, for free movement, whenever any or all of these are called for by the task at hand. It will be a place in which the teacher and the child can respond to each other in value terms, where one can think freely, where teachers love their charges and exercises patience and understanding, where much is expected and life exciting, where a teacher confronts realities ranging from the grass frog and the angleworm to the mysteries of time and eternity, along with the child, where wisdom communicating relationships exist. The subject matter may be what you please at any time, but since our methods communicate the values implicit in them, such matters as love, the ability to reason, the experience and appreciation of freedom, mutual tolerance and understanding, justice, must be taught by being used all the time, in all the classes and all the courses. If anything was ever worthy of being called core curriculum, this is. In my early 20s, I started going back to family restaurants. I worked at an integrated preschool in Providence for both neurodivergent and neurotypical children, especially designed to support autistic kids. We'd go on a field trip to the zoo or a nearby park or a splash pad during the summer, and we went to Cello's, a family restaurant in Rhode Island. Now, I grew up around here, going to Friendly's, another family restaurant chain, so the setting was not unfamiliar. Friendly's, if you haven't had the pleasure, is an incredible place. The chain was founded by Curtis and Presley Blake during the Depression and grew in popularity in the post-war era when more families started to go out to dinner together. The Friendly's in Arlington welcomed me as a kid. Big, comfy booths to sit in, colorful decorations on the walls, placemats used as coloring pages. It was okay to wear casual clothes, and there were other kids around. The menu had big pictures on it so that non-readers could know what they wanted to order. There was lots of options for picky eaters. The cups had lids. As one friend told me, you could crawl underneath the table while you waited for your food, and no one would bat an eye. The food, after all, came pretty quickly. The staff was really kind. The grilled cheese was delicious. The bill was affordable. And of course, there was a 99-cent ice cream sundae treat at the end. The point, in part, is that Friendly's is a place designed for kids and their parents to be together. And that's in contrast to so many other restaurants and other public spaces, frankly, that are not. At Friendly's, we could be ourselves, which is why I think a place like Cello's was a perfect place to go on a field trip for the school I worked at many years later. Doing those field trips out in public always revealed a lot about people around us. I was keenly aware of the impatient, baffled, or judgmental eyes. When these kids were just being themselves was experienced as an inconvenience or an oddity to other people. And I was just as aware of the kind, generous, patient eyes, offering a helping hand or a look of understanding. At Cello's, a loud yelp didn't cause the senior citizens who were also having lunch there to turn around and scowl. And a total meltdown, which happened from time to time with these young kids, was met with patience. And meanwhile, we were practicing with these preschoolers how to go to a restaurant. For some kids, skills like ordering food were even part of their individualized education plans. For others, it was just getting used to being in a place like a restaurant. The rhythm of it, the different steps, the vibe. How else could a young person know how to go to a restaurant without a place that they could practice? With our support then, their parents might be more likely to go out to a restaurant with their child later on. And that matters. Just like those eating at Cello's or Friendly's, we are surrounded by people practicing in the world all around us. And sometimes that can be a difficult or frustrating encounter. Okay, imagine with me. You are stopped on a 2-lane road behind a line of cars. And the car in front of the line is signaling to turn left. And they're taking a while. What do you do next? Do you fiddle with the radio? Arch your neck or stick your head out the window? Hey, what's the holdup? Say to yourself, gosh, they had an opening. Why didn't they just turn? Get frustrated because you have somewhere to be. Honk your horn? Well, finally, by some mercy, the car takes a left, the flow of traffic resumes. But as you're driving by, you turn your head as you pass the car in question that's now made it into the parking lot. And notice the bumper sticker. Please be patient, student driver. What changes in you? What does knowing that someone is learning affect your impatience, your bafflement, your judgment, your frustration, or your anger? May I suggest that this change in disposition is indeed some of our spiritual work to do. That an openness to learning, a compassion to meet people where they are, is a spiritual discipline that can transform ourselves and our communities. And we practice this openness especially in how we treat children among us. Religious education in the tradition of Unitarian Universalism seeks to create a place where children can be themselves and also learn, just like a family restaurant. Rather than teaching specific doctrine or telling kids what to believe, Unitarian Universalists explore alongside young people to cultivate their sense of wonder, curiosity, respect, and care for the world, for the groups that they're a part of, and for themselves. This approach to religious education has a history to it. It was not always necessarily going to work out this way. One pioneer in transforming how Unitarian Universalists do religious education was Sophia Lyon-Fahs, a religious educator in the mid-1900s who brought progressive education from John Dewey to Unitarian churches. We heard from her Universalist counterpart, Angus MacLean, in our reading today. I cannot stress enough how much Fahs changed how we all approach religious education. And it began with centering the experience of the children she worked with. Fahs took the ideas of children very seriously. She listened to what children had to say. Their own insights and experiences were themselves like a sacred text through which we all could understand religious experience. And in addition to changing what we focused on in religious education, Fahs changed up how religious education happened. Instead of front-of-the-room instruction, Fahs offered chances for children to learn interactively. Children could craft or role play and express themselves creatively as a part of a Sunday school. Instead of only using stories from the Bible, Fahs drew on stories from many different cultures, and she wasn't afraid to explore with children the discoveries of science. Fahs embodies a style that could be summed up in the following way: meet people where they are and help them find the next step. First Parish Cambridge has carried on this legacy of liberal religious education for decades, often explicitly in its religious education program. At Center, this approach to religious education communicates that young people have worth and dignity inherently and unequivocally. Beyond the religious education program, what would happen if we imagined the whole of First Parish Cambridge or another multi-generational community as if it were a family restaurant? Instead of learning how to go to a restaurant, here we practice being a multi-generational community of shared values. The first part of that for me is the practice of multi-generational community. How do we do multi-generational community time well? If you might take anything from Friendlies, it's the insight to perpetually look at what this community, or a similar one that you're a part of, is like, and design it so that it works for everyone, including young people, including parents, including elders, and that's just talking about age groups. For example, when we're all in community together, we aspire to think carefully about the language that we use so that people can understand it. That doesn't necessarily mean not using unfamiliar words, but instead, if we're using a word that might be new to someone, we take the time to teach it. This is something that and I'm especially noticing the reading that I started us off with, as a minister and lover of big words, I really have to work on this one. We aspire to sing some songs that everyone can sing together. And if they're new songs, we can take the time to teach and learn them together. The choir and music directors help us with that. We aspire to pick carefully those evergreen stories that we tell together. The type of story we can return to again and again. That an elementary school kid can get one message from and meaning from, and a young adult can get another message, and an elder another. The not-so-secret of this type of design is that oftentimes, if it works for young people, it really works for everyone. But it takes skill and care and intention to do. And really what is happening at First Parish is that you may be practicing including people of all ages in many aspects of this community. Hear me. I'm not saying that we need to do everything together all the time. There's benefit to being all together sometimes and huddled with our age group at other times. But that vibrancy of a time all together is magic, and it takes all of a community to make it happen. The other part of practicing in community like First Parish is that it's not just about an orientation towards young people. It's about an orientation towards everyone. When you spoke that complicated responsive reading from William Ellery Channing at the beginning of the service, or listened to Angus MacLean's word about how a child's love of fun can be brought into the classroom, or you empathized with that driver with the bumper sticker turning left, did you all imagine yourselves too? I hope you did. The truth is that there's a lot of things we're learning and getting better at all the time. But rarely do we have a bumper sticker on our behinds letting everyone know. You can imagine some of the bumper stickers we might print together. Please be patient. Student griever. Please be patient. Student racial justice advocate. Please be patient. Student empty nester. The spiritual discipline for all of us is that openness to learning, a curiosity about what someone else is going through, rather than the assumption that someone is incapable or acting out of malice. As I said before, it's very hard to do with consistency. As in our imagined scenario of driving, if you've had a bad day, that impatient bafflement, judgment, frustration, or anger comes easier. So too in the rest of life. So too here in our religious community. But even that frustration is a cue that maybe in the next day or the next week, to try to reopen yourself to that learning that's happening in yourself and in the people all around you. We can continue to support communities that honor, welcome, and include young people. In turn, staying open to the learning of others and ourselves becomes a practice that helps us transform. It's the work of religious communities, and it's lifelong work. So let's get back to it.